Welcome back, folks. This is part 2 of Product Sense, where I do a complete mock and a walkthrough explanation on the way with open notes so that you can maximize your learnings. If you haven't seen part 1, find it here. This is a continuation from that video. Let's keep going. Cool. So next, what we want to do is chart out the ecosystem. So what does the ecosystem of travel look like? I'm going to take like 30 seconds or so to quickly write this. So you have travelers and travel-related services or providers. Within travelers, I'm going to segment this into business travelers, and then I'm going to do something like leisure travelers, travel-related services, like you could have all folks we spoke about earlier. So you have your accommodation companies, local businesses, I don't know, airports, airport lounges, like that's interesting. Maybe there's something there. Same for like train stations and all of that stuff. I think I want to continue to break down the leisure travelers, and let's try to think of a meaningful way to segment travelers, right? We ideally want to avoid a demographic segmentation. A demographic segmentation is where you would just do something like, I'm just going to give a bad example, right? Demographic segmentation would be something like Gen X, Gen Z, boomers, etc. This is something that interviewers usually don't like to see, and for good reason, because you could play this for anything. You know, if we were talking about sports, you could do this. If we're talking about whatever product you want to talk about, this is possible. And so there's very hard to find meaningful differences if you just create age-based categories. So we want to do a behavioral segmentation. So that is usually the default. And if you cannot figure out anything, then you go to demographic, but that's really going to cause you issues unless in that specific prompt demographic makes sense, which it does sometimes. So let me take a second to think about behavioral based segmentation. So maybe like traditional vacationers, you could have solo, soul, I've been this one. Explorers, digital nomads, travelers. I think that's a pretty good list, fairly reasonable. Ooh, this is interesting. Okay, I think that's fairly well sized. Okay, so my main segments, I'm a little bit confused about one segment. I'll quickly talk about it now. So I think my main segments are traditional family vacationers. What I mean by that is like a mom and dad and a kid or a couple of kids doing the regular vacation thingy. One that I'm calling, soul searching explorers. These are usually like people who are traveling solo, who want to, oh God, scroll again. Who are traveling solo, who kind of want to do some exploration. They maybe don't have a very strict agenda of what they want to do, maybe a little bit less planned out. Then you have digital nomads. So like these are people who literally want to live and work somewhere, fairly self-explanatory. And then social group travelers, like these could be group of friends who either know each other or group of friends or group of people who just met for travel reasons. I think that could be an interesting group. And then while I was writing that, I thought of travel content creators. I'm slightly struggling with this one because it really is not Nisi. So these traveling content creators, right? These are people who, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. These traveling content creators are people who are traveling for both business and leisure. So I could place them in either, but there is a part overlap here. So I am not sure where to place them. I think they could sit by themselves as well, but maybe they just we'll just leave them inside business travelers, which I'm not going to open up and segment out more. I'm going to leave the travel content creators in the business one, and my reason for that is that they usually do travel content as a business first, but they also want to do it as a lifestyle. So this really could fall anywhere, and I think we're not being messy here. But I think that that's okay. The reason for that is that I think their life itself is not messy. Like, they are people who are traveling for both reasons. So I think that our not being messy is still a fair reflection of reality. That is how their life is. So we're just going to leave it there. I'm not going to open up business travelers. The reason for that is that we are solving this as Meta, right? Meta is a consumer-focused company. We are not Navan. We're not Navan. We're not TripActions. We're not SAP Concur. We're not Amex Platinum Concierge or something like that, Business Concierge. If we were one of those things, not Meta, then I would open up business travelers and segment them out more into like commuters, business, like whatever all of that stuff is. Not gonna spend time thinking about it. Leisure travelers is where our interest lies. This is definitely just an example. So leisure travelers is what I want to go with. And within this, I want to prioritize. Now I'm going to explicitly share what criteria I'm going to use, and it's going to be fairly straightforward. Use and like okay, need to scroll. So I think within the behavioral segment, I'm going to prioritize based on 3 criteria. First, segment size. Second, potential frequency of use. And third, an overall alignment with Meta's mission to build human connection. This is something that most people miss and has served me really well in prioritizing in a good way, remembering what company we actually are solving this for. So I think to start off, I'm going to say that the family traditional vacationers is something I want to deprioritize. My reason for that is that I think while it's a fairly reasonable segment size and fairly reasonable frequency of use, but I don't think the frequency of use is that high. They probably travel as a family twice a year or something. I think the overall alignment with Meta's mission could be slightly less because families are very, very set in their ways in social connection. Families usually will hang out with each other. They're going for a family bonding or family vacation stuff. If there's multiple families going together, I would probably categorize them inside social group. So I think the overall social need of families while traveling may be on the lower side because they're so inherently social within themselves. And for their social needs within themselves, which we don't know what they are, but because they live with each other and talk to each other on a daily basis, I highly doubt that they need an external product to help them. I think these could be more interesting. Now, given these, I think the digital nomads, while it's interesting and they could have a lot of interesting things going on in their life, I do think in the larger scheme of things when we look at the overall market of people for leisure travelers, I think digital nomads are still going to be a minority. So I am going to deprioritize those. Now I'm going to use this criteria to quickly decide between 2B and 2D. So I think the segment size for soul searching explorers probably is a large. Frequency of use, I think it could be a medium to a large. I could see this going either way. I see them having a lot of freedom to travel, therefore that makes me think it could be a large, but I also see them maybe having more budget constraints and maybe a low willingness to pay, which is all going to get baked into the potential frequency of use reason. So for that, it's a medium. So I'm somewhere in between. I'm just going to put a medium to large right now. And then overall alignment with Meta's mission to build human connection, I think it's really large or like extra large as well. These are people who are solo. They would probably enjoy socializing during traveling. And then social group travelers, I think the segment size, while there, I think might not be as big. as soul searching explorers. I'm going to give it a medium. Potential frequency of views, I would say that could be a medium to a large. The reason for that, again, is sometimes groups are very well oiled. Everybody knows each other, and current products are already doing a good job at giving them what they need. They can use WhatsApp and Instagram and Messenger and all of that. And then overall alignment with Meta's mission to do social stuff, it could be like a medium. If there's some groups where people don't really know each other, but they know like some common social butterfly or something, then there's a potential for that to be higher, but then the social butterfly will play a bigger role. So that's my thinking. I could be wrong here, but based on this, I think I'm gonna go for the solo soul searching explorer. Let's see, how do I feel about this? Yeah, I think that's fair. So now there may be better options, but I think there's a fairly reasonable direction to go in. Just making sure that my screen scroll is correct. Okay, cool. So now what I want to do is quickly outline some of these pain points. And what I like to do is I like to, in my mind, think of the rough user journey. I might write it sometimes, but if I feel like I don't need to, then I'm okay. And the user journey just helps me ensure that I don't miss any major steps and that I have a structured approach of thinking of pain points. Because if you don't have a user journey, you might think of something that happens towards the end of the trip, then something that happens in the beginning of the trip, and you do all of this and you'll miss out something important. So I'll try to go about it in a fairly structured way, but I'll kind of run it in my own mind. So let's start with the booking process, right? Planning everything can be cumbersome and highly fragmented. To come up with a good itinerary, just making sure everything is visible. Cool. Okay. Next, bandit, solo soul searching explorers. Solo travel could get lonely at times. I want to travel solo, but don't mind temporary or like don't mind some human connectivity, something like that. I want to travel off the beaten path. Do not want to do just what everyone is doing. And then solo travel, right? So I'm trying to find pain points that are not just for travelers, but as close as possible to solo travelers. And then I want to know what travel experiences could be extremely interesting for a solo travel. Some experiences are better done in groups, but I want to look at my travel itinerary from the specific lens of a solo traveler. I think it's fairly straightforward. Okay, let's continue with that. Now, let's quickly prioritize these pain points. And the way I want to prioritize these pain points is severity of pain. So essentially, how painful is it? Okay, screen share is good. How many people might it impact? So like your frequency, and then again, an alignment with Meta's mission, human connectivity, and tech that powers it. Okay, so when I think about all of this, right, I think that the planning pain point could be interesting, but for a solo traveler, I don't see it as something that would cause a huge alignment with Meta's mission. So yes, it could play a role for group travelers. Like if a group of friends are trying to book travel together, then like I said, I think the stuff that I had earlier, like maybe they're chatting on WhatsApp or they have a group on WhatsApp and Llama could come in and say, hey, I understood everybody's requests and here's the perfect itinerary. I think there's definitely value in that. And in that case, Meta is actually playing a social role as well in building community and the technology that powers human connectivity. But I think if it's about just one person trying to book something, then essentially the solution to that might just become something like an AI agent that ChatGPT is already doing. So I don't want to build, I don't think that Meta should be the one building for that. I don't think that's causing, if it's just the itinerary, I don't think it's doing anything related to social connection majorly. If it's an itinerary that helps you meet more people, I don't even know what that would look like. Then there might be something, but I don't really know what that would actually look like. I think this is obviously one of the one that stands out the most. I'm going to keep this in. Let's see if I can kick out one more. Travel off the beaten path, do not want to do what everyone is doing. Okay, that's fair. I think this one is also interesting. I feel like B and D feel a lot more ingrained into a solo traveler. They're much more niche pain points. I think A and C could be a little bit broader, that other segments might also have these pain points. So I personally like B and D. Now I'm going to use the criteria to break the tie. So I think in terms of the severity of the pain point and how many people it might impact, let's do a quick scoring. So I think severity of pain point, I think it's a large. Number of people it might impact within the solo soul searchers, I think it's again a large. And how would it align with Meta's mission? I think is pretty solid. Okay, that prioritization didn't help much so far. That's pretty vanilla scoring. I want to know what travel experiences could be extremely interesting for a solo traveler. Yeah, I think it's a fair problem. I don't think it's like the most important problem. I think you could still figure that out. So like in my second criteria of how many people might it impact, I'm going to bake in the fact that, what alternatives are currently available. So like you could look at TikTok Reels, Instagram Reels. Oh, we didn't mention TikTok as a competitor. But you could look at all of these as potential alternatives for you to solve this problem. So I think I'm going to give this a medium, and I think the mission alignment is pretty good. So we'll give that a large, but I still think we have an answer. So we're gonna go with this. Solo traveling could get lonely at times. I want to travel solo, but don't mind some human connection. Okay, cool. Okay, that ends part 2. We covered user segmentation, which is one of the most important sections where I see candidates struggle the most. We also looked at the pain points for the segment that we prioritized. Tune into part 3 where I cover the final solution section and we wrap up this prompt with our final recommendation.